May the force be with you is a phrase used to wish a person well to overcome a challenge. The invitation in this podcast, May the life force be with you, is to explore what it means to truly feel alive, to appreciate the physical, emotional and spiritual connection to our energy, and finally to understand how this impacts who you are and all that you do. May this conversation inspire you to thrive. Hello and welcome to May the Life Force be with you. Hi, Kahreela.
Hi, Fiona. we were just talking and we were like, we need to press record.
We have many of those moments, don't we? And I think, it's interesting because, obviously we just chat and we chew the fat and we're not telling anybody what to do or telling anybody how to feel or projecting any of our thoughts, wishes, dreams, beliefs and hopes on anyone. But sometimes it's just nice to share and talk these things through and to challenge what we think and what we read and what we might hear and kind of poke holes in it. And it's poking holes out of curiosity, not out of a need to be right or to fully understand. And I think that's how I kind of want to frame this conversation that we might dive into as we record on quite a big day, which is the 4th of July.
Yeah. It's a big day. It's a day that really celebrates modern politics, I guess, isn't it?
Well, I guess we'll find out in 24 hours' time. So for those listening in the US of A, happy Independence Day for the 4th. We'll see when this episode comes out. And it's actually not all about just being the 4th of July, Independence Day. In the UK, we have our elections, our general election to vote in a new government. It's kind of weird because they always think it's the Prime Minister, but actually we've never had to vote for a Prime Minister. We don't get to. It's not how our system works. It's local to national, allegedly. So that is what is happening for us today. And with that, there's, like any elections or change of guard or change of anything, there's a sense of optimism, a sense of hope, a sense of things can be different, a sense of change. And that is something that every election hopes, particularly when it's a democratic one, to create that sense of change, hope and optimism within the people that are voting.
Yeah. And there's also in this country and a lot of the people I'm speaking to, a sense of hopelessness with this election as well.
And I'm sure in the US, that's what they're staring down the barrel of the gun of as well, a hopelessness of, really?
Because I think people feel fed up with the system as a whole, and I think many people feel like it doesn't matter which way they vote because they're voting for the same thing. And they see this.
Which is really, really sad. It's really sad that we've got to this place. I mean, I studied politics at university. This is something that I've always been interested in. I think that it's sad that we believe now in dictatorships more than people's voices, and that there is a shift in messiahing of individuals to look for leadership and guidance, when it used to be something that you could create change in, even up to like the 60s and 70s, particularly in the UK and in the US and around the world. There was global movements, there was civil uprising, there was voice of the people, there was in the UK unionism and things where people could unite behind causes to create change. I feel, to your point, there's a hopelessness now that can happen because of the way that the system is set up. It doesn't allow those voices to create the change that they used to be able to.
And I feel like as well that certainly in the UK, I feel like the parties, there's this thing of like, you can only go red or blue. No other parties are, every other thing is a wasted vote. Even if the other parties maybe represent you more. And I feel like the parties, they're archaic. They stand for values and principles. They were founded in a time particularly Labour, actually, it was founded in a time that was very relevant. Like there were many people that you would class as the working class in this country. And I'm not sure that we have that same setup now of class system. I don't think that the things that these parties represent and stand for are necessarily what we need right now in these times. You know, just before we started recording, we were talking about whether the weather's being manipulated or not, and if that's causing, do you see what I mean? Like the values of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party are nothing to do with the environmental shifts that young people are now worried about and their future. Do you see what I mean? It's like there's almost not representation for who we are now in politics because we're using the old model that may have been.
And you know what? The old model for everything.
Yeah.
Right. Britain is broken. Like we've talked about this before. Come and shoot us, come and call us out later if you disagree. Please.
Please comment.
Please. Let us know why you think we're wrong. Love it. Absolutely love to know why the life force of the UK is absolutely thriving right now, because it's not helped when we're here. But if you have an opposing point of view, I welcome it. I embrace it. I'm all ears. I can't wait to hear it. Because whatever you're taking, I want to take more.
If you were in the Cotswolds right now, enjoying.
I mean, it's difficult to know how to feel different, but that is because all of the systems are broken. Right, the health system is broken, the education system is broken, the caring system is broken, the wealth system is broken. Like all of those things are no longer fit for purpose in the world that we now live in. And what I got a sense of, when you were talking about the history behind Labour, as I say, I studied politics and history at university. All of that was based on an action of the movement of the time. The need of the time. And what we're trying to do now is try and figure all this shit out with the needs of the time, of which technology has changed everything at a pace and a speed and a velocity that is unimaginable. And we, the humans and our systems, are left behind. And so there's no, when you hear politicians or senators or whoever try and understand how even just freaking Facebook works, it's like speaking to a 4-year-old, right? So how can these people possibly understand the impact of AI in our in our society in the next 5 years? Let's not even say 30 years, the next 5 years, the impact that technology has on how we live. Everything, our jobs, how we love, how we live, how we eat, everything is impacted. And the people, and we don't know what we don't know, because that information is held by such a few amount of people, and they're not the people who are trying to understand how to create a positive society. So there's just so much wrong with the emphasis we put on who makes decisions, how they make decisions, and how informed they are as to how much technology has changed our lives in the last 150 years.
And also,
sorry, I'm going to now remove my soapbox from the corner.
I totally hear you. And also, in British politics, there is still a huge percentage of British politics that are homegrown in Eton.
Oh yeah, and she doesn't mean Eton; she means ETON.
Yeah. They don't
private
even
school
know the reality of. They don't even know the reality that most people are living. They're in a bubble. They're in a bubble of the privileged, and they've been prepared for keeping the old politics alive. And I mean.
Do you know what else kept the old politics alive? I mean, we may as well go full on controversial here now. Let's just dive in with all the topics. I mean, we cover sex a lot, so we may as well do the others. Religion and faith used to keep order It used to keep people in the lines that made sense. There was a community, there was an understanding of good and why they were behind certain movements 150, 200 years ago, because their faith in coming together behind that, I guess, created some kind of order or community that made sense of it. And a lot of decisions, let's face it, made in Western politics claim to have a root based on, actually all politics, because it's based on whatever book that you read to be believed to be the one that sets out the course of what society should be. That's breaking down now as well. And there's no room currently in, I believe, politics or modern world for spiritual belief, for something that isn't derived from a book that someone can pick up and read and say, well, I know this because it says X, Y, Z. And that alternative perspective, which is not to be confused with conspiracy theory, something else. They're two separate things. But a spiritual belief, a way to hold a belief that is that you want goodness, kindness, love in society, is not the same as the tin hat wearing woo-woo side, which all of these words get mashed up and mixed together. But there's no room for spirituality and curiosity in current life either, or politics, I believe. Sorry, that was a little bit tangent, but you know where I was going, Kahreela, I hope.
I completely agree with you. And I don't even think I'm not even sure if it's spirituality, although I do think spirituality is part of good leadership. But, and obviously politics is about leadership, but I feel like there is this
humanity, is that the right word?
What we've got in this country, and from what I see from politics in the Western world in general, is politicians serving the manifestos of their parties rather than being leaders for what is happening now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, like they're serving the tradition. They're trying to keep their parties alive and the principles of their parties alive, rather than being like, I am a leader standing on the precipice of what is happening now, and I am going to suggest a way through this and a way of navigating this. And that is the problem, is it's like so stuck in, you know, in this country, like this country, and I know we come back to this a lot, but like it's partly because it's where my land work is going, but this country's politics was founded on colonialism. You know, it was. Everything about how this country functioned was, and the politics of this country, the Victorian politics that we are still essentially riding on, were based on a British Empire.
Yeah. And you can feel that. Yeah. Sorry.
No. You can feel, you know, and I believe that, like I said to you before we started recording, I believe that the more I'm tuning into the shadow of this for the land work that we're about to do, the more I understand that, like, we are all victims of that. There is not one human being that is not a victim of that, because it caused disassociation with the earth itself. You know, in fact, one of the shadows I saw in the collective consciousness is the reason British people say sorry all the time is because we're carrying that fucking guilt. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but like, what a guilt to carry. You know, what a contract to bear, what a guilt to carry. And, you know, why I say we're all victims of it is because when you go and claim land and claim resources and you're not in any ceremonial connection with that, and you just take and you just have and you just put a flag down and you control the weather, you know, if that's what is happening, which we don't know. But like when you do that, it stops you from listening. And what we need right now is leaders and everybody listening and responding and being present, as opposed to being like, well, this is the way it's always been, or this is what is mine. And, it's like it stops the ability.
Or let's just put more money into the system because money is the way to solve it rather than anything else. And that frustrates me when I hear it's just like, well, where are we going to get the money to do all this? Well, where do we get the chance to think about all of this? Like how problems can be solved without money. I know that might not be something that people believe, but I believe it to be true. And, like you say, be more present, more understanding of what is actually happening at every level of society is something that politicians don't do. They don't listen.
There's all this
they don't have time to listen.
There's all this promise. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm going to, I promised this amount of housing, as opposed to let's look at the root of these problems, as opposed to let's find out why. It's like these sweeping statements, which is also that like, I'm going to come and do this. I'm not going to like look at the land and look at the situation and integrate. I'm just going to say, I'm doing it.
Or why, when housing is a great one, right? Like we need more houses in the UK. Do you know that I said on a previous podcast, like over 30% of us live alone.
Do we need more houses? Do we need more community?
Exactly. And so it's that kind of blunt edge stick of the, I'll build a house, or, looking at homelessness, and homelessness is not necessarily to do with housing. It's part of it, but it's also to do with education, alcoholism, community, it's care, it's employment, it's skills, it's, there's lots of different things.
It's to do with death and displacement and trauma and, apparently most people in this, most people in this country are 2 paychecks away from being homeless.
Which creates such a high level of, anxiety. It's always there, which is why we live in a lower vibration, which is why when we come back here, you feel the lower vibration and life energy of the UK. And as you say, it's not one thing, it's these layers that are impacting us, whether it's directly or indirectly. There is this, energy and vibration that is fearful.
I feel like, and this is where that colonial wounding comes in, is it like the land needs to be our leader. We need to listen to what is happening on the planet, like to the earth, to, that's what our ancestors always used to do, because she changes and times change and timelines change and things change. In a way, this inability to listen, when you actually zone out of this and go, well, why are our leaders not being relevant to today in terms of who they are and what they're offering? Why are they holding on to old models and old systems? It's because, I'm trying to put it into words, it's like the land, whether we are manipulating the weather or not, or whether we just whether some people believe the weather is being manipulated, everybody can agree that the weather in the UK, the weather in the UK is different from when I was a child. The seasons are changing. That is fact. That is fact. Like, you can see it for yourself. And, the fact that we think we're either controlling it or it's an apocalypse is us not being in relationship with Mother Earth. Do you see what I mean? It's us. It's that wound of displacement, of us no longer belonging to Mother Earth. We're either doing it to Mother Earth or we're the victims of it. As opposed
and both can be true as well.
Sorry, what did you say?
We can have done it, and both can be true as well. Like, we can have done it to Mother Earth and be facing the consequences of it, right? Not or for because I believe that a lot of the displacement around the world, which causes a lot of the current political rhetoric and kind of fear in some people, is this mass displacement, and that comes from our extraction, to use your previous kind of phrase that we've talked about in the podcast, our extraction of land, in not looking after Mother Earth and taking everything from her, means that people can no longer live in those areas. Those extremes are now even more extreme because we've extracted all the goodness from it. So those people then are forced into other areas, which causes conflict. Beliefs are different. There's then a pressure on the next area of land they move to, and so it goes on and so it goes on. And whether that extraction is from overpopulation, over farming, mining, oil, whatever it might be, it is an extraction that's happened, war. And that war has happened because of the extraction, because they're then fighting over a resource which is scarce, and scarcity creates that need for war, conflict, and having, because you feel if I don't have...
That displacement cuts you off from the supply. It cuts you off from the mother being the leader. Do you know what I mean? It cuts you off. And that's why, of course, there are greater victims of colonialism in terms of like the story of what happened. And I don't want to take away from any of that. But just in terms of like what I see is that we, in a way, what we need to do collectively is realize that we all together need to transcend this system that caused the displacement of all of our brothers and sisters, and stopped us being brothers and sisters to each other, and stopped us circulating energy, and stopped us, and created unfair borders, and it's like, it's almost like we all need to plug back into Mother Earth and choose leaders that want to listen to what the earth wants next.
So that sounds, yes, we do. How do we, Kahreela, find those leaders that understand what we're saying and want to be the ones that we choose? Because at the end of the day, we have a choice, because people have, bravely, I would suggest, because I would not want to be in their position, unfortunately, because think how wonderful it would be if May the Life Force Be With You ran the world. We'll just start with the UK, or Brighton maybe. But not many people want to be in that position because of the fear of all the negative connotations that come with that. And it's a big ask for an individual. And this is where I think we get it slightly wrong, putting so much of the messiah-ness into an individual. How do we change the system? How do we get people interested in making those changes? How do we get people to stand up again, and not stand up against something, but stand up for something and get behind something that's positive and passionate, rather than being anti something, which to me just feels like another side of the same sword of negativity, low energy. And, how do we get positive movement going?
Do your shadow work. Shadow work is active.
Start with self. You start with self.
Do your shadow work. If you are seeing it, you have the shadow of it. So shadow work is absolutely inner activism, sure. But I also think there's something about visioning. It's like we have to give up our addiction to the old system and start visioning a new system. We almost have to get to the point where we accept that going and voting for your dictator that is blue or red every few years is not politics for now. And we actually have to accept that it is broken, and pull up and start visioning, almost inspired by it, what does a better system look like? Because I think until we have the vision of a world that isn't displaced, we're going to keep and I don't want to say it's not like, it's almost like we have to pull our energy out. It's funny, like this morning I was scrolling and then I was reading something about that's going on in France about the rebelling against cashless society, and groups of people are just going to restaurants, eating the food and saying they only have cash, or putting petrol in their car and being like, I only have cash. And it's like, we've got to stop making these few individuals responsible and take that painful and challenging responsibility for what is going on. It's like we all need to become leaders. And really connect to what we think is most important. And it's almost like giving up on Pisces. There is a very nice thing in a way in Pisces where like you could just put all of the responsibility on Parliament and complain about it. And like that isn't going to work for these times. It isn't what the mother wants. What about you?
I love that you said. No, I love that you said we can all be leaders, because that can mean so many different things. It's not about saying, oh, I'm off to be prime minister tomorrow or president or whatever it might be. It's how do I take ownership, responsibility in my own world first, and also feel aligned with my sense of right and wrong, my belief, my values, and then what does that look like in how I live my life in the world around me, and how does that manifest itself, and what are the changes that I can make that allow me to live my life that's more aligned like that. Because when we are more grounded and more aligned with how we want to live, we are naturally happier, more in service, healthier people that have a positive ripple on those around us, that then creates the space and permission for other people to do the same. And then you have this wonderful ripple that happens. And I can see that, I can feel it, but I also know and sense, well, I don't know, I sense in this time that there are bad people out there. There are people that don't have good motives, that they are driven by self to the point of only self. The ego is so freaking out of control that they look for people to manipulate, to bring along with them and share their shadow and not their good side. And how do we counter that as a society?
I feel like it is about what does it mean to lead with?
Right. So if you're leading, you won't be led.
Exactly.
Is that
exactly. Yeah. And what's in charge of you? Is it your trauma? Mm-hmm. Because if your trauma is in charge of you, guess what? The traumatized leaders are going to be in charge of you.
Got it.
And so can you lead with love?
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak the truth? What does it mean to be letting your soul or your heart lead in terms of the choices and where you're, to bring it back to life for us, it's like, where are you putting your energy? I know so many people are starting to really face the ways that they're propping up the system. Mm-hmm. Like the Facebook ads they're investing in, or the ways that they're propping up the system. And it's like, yes, the initial response is like, well, this is how my business is run. This is how I have to do it. This is, and it's scary to take a risk and be like, actually, this isn't actually aligned for me. This isn't part of like my higher self politics. I'm going to start visioning and opening up and getting curious about other ways and pulling my energy out of that system that we are all participating in. Like, we are. Do you see what I mean? It's like we have to face the fact that
yes.
You know, until we stop participating in it, we don't really have a right to complain about it.
So does that mean, so firstly, thank you for that reminder and that emphasis on that self leadership governance first, because I needed that double reminder. So thank you for that. I really, it hit home the second time, and that if you are in your own, you know, you call it your own sovereignty, right? If you are firm in your own leadership, doesn't matter what anybody else says. You can't be swayed. You're like, no, I'm good, thanks. I'm all good because I know what, you know, I know where I am and who I am and what I want, and you're less likely to be persuaded, manipulated, whatever those right words are. You have a true sense of self that is unwavering. And that comes from that leadership. And that makes sense to me now when you say that.
As you're speaking, Fiona, what's coming through for me is like, you know, a leader in the old sense of the word is the one that is going to help navigate and create a new path. So any leaders that are keeping an old path and an old system alive are not leaders by the nature of what a leader is. You know, a leader is meant to be on the front line, leading, helping people find a change, a new path. And so, and that, like, if you're doing that in your, you know, we all know when we're doing the old choices because it's easy, like, but we're not in our leadership then. No. You know, we're not seeking the new path, the new option, the new way. And
yeah, completely feel that. So,
like, yeah.
Here's a question, controversial maybe to close on. So it's the 4th of July in the UK, election day. You said, I don't even want to ask this now because but I hate being controversial. Stepping out of the system, does that mean that we shouldn't vote? Or do we do the best that we can with what we have to send a signal that we want change? And then, I mean, because we're going to have a government regardless. There'll be somebody in number 10 regardless. I know what my perspective is, but when you say we're participating in part of it, we're part of it. Is the electoral system part of it as well?
Yes.
Of course it is, right?
You know, I mean, there's many ways to not vote. You can go and damage a ballot. If you want to do an anarchist but not vote. I can't vote because I don't have an address. I don't know if I would have voted anyway.
I have to vote. It's like ingrained in me because of my politics background, but also I just think of the suffragettes. How many people
I agree.
How many people fought for the right to have a voice? So to me it's super, super important. And I get frustrated when I see low turnout, but then people are very vocal. This is your chance to make a statement, and that statement can be, you can write whatever you want on the paper, but it's your right to kind of, you know, people fought for this throughout the ages, and I respect why it's important.
I respect them for fighting for it. I also don't want to vote. But in terms of self-leadership, I think you've got to do what's true for you. And I think that, you know, if you're not voting because you can't be bothered and you're being lazy, it's not the right, that's not leadership.
No.
If you are not voting because you've actually tuned in and feel like it is going against the truth of your soul and your heart, and that you're not voting is an energetic, vibrational impact, then that's leadership, isn't it? You know, and I don't want to vote in spite of all those people that gave those lives, and they were fighting an old world, an old system. Like, we cannot, this is part of the colonial wounding as well, actually, is like, we need to love now and not love on behalf of our ancestors. We need to forgive and do the shadow work and all of that on behalf of our ancestors. But we need to be true to now. And that isn't to take away from the amazing inspirational power and story of our ancestors. But it's not a reason. This is really radical, but it's not a reason to do things, because we've got to do things because it's true for now.
Yeah.
And
I can hold both of those things in my head at the same time.
It feels really scary to say it, but like, I feel like what's coming out of this conversation is like, leadership is really knowing your why.
Yeah.
And knowing that your why is the highest truth of the moment. And it's like, if your why's off, then your choice is going to be off. Your action's going to be off. Your vibration's going to be off. Your participation's going to be off. So know your, like, I think that's the thing, is know your why. Because it's your why that will have the most life force energy in it.
I love that. Thank you, Kahreela. And, you know, I think don't be scared, because all of the things that we've said can be true at the same time and at different times and different thoughts. And I think that's one of the things that I would love politics to get away from and society to get away from. That's like, well, if yes is your answer to question A, it has to be yes to the next 50 questions after that, that I'm going to put you in a box and say that this is your belief. And it's not. We can have lots of different beliefs and we can change our minds. I mean, I can listen to you and go, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, I can see how that can be true. And I can also still hold my leadership truth to be true. But that's what makes that's what's going to make the difference at the end of the day, is being able to hold conversations without judgment, which is what being present really is. And it's actually listening. And that is good leadership as well.
And that is being in circle, not left or right, blue or red, west or east, third or first. We need to be in a circle, man. Because when we're in circle, that's when the mother is the leader. Because in that circle, the center of that circle is the earth.
Well, I don't know about you, everybody, but I'm kind of petitioning for vote for Kahreela.
May the life force be with you. Please comment. Do you know what? We've started this now. Let's get some algorithms going. Comment. Tell us what you think.
You know, like maybe we get a politician on here at some point. Maybe we need to battle with Alistair and Rory and the rest of politics. You know, Peter Kyle, who's very likely to be our politician here in Hove. He's very good, actually. He's one of the good ones, and he's quite open and honest about his beliefs. And he's based in Hove, so you never know, Kahreela. Maybe we'll ask Peter to come and give us his opinion on all of this.
I did.
Or Caroline Lucas, now she's retired.
I did actually meet somebody who's a politics teacher, and his politics is anarchism. And I was like, oh, I think I want him on May the Life Was Be.
See, I go for the gentle and you go for the anarchism. That pretty much sums us up, right?
We can have both of them.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Anyway, wish you happy voting. Happy voting on the 4th of July. I also want to say it's the height of the Sirius Gateway today, which is where, like, our spiritual, it's an astrological, it's when Sirius rises. Sirius is like our spiritual sun. And is like new spiritual technology in a way. So that is also happening today, just to say.
Okay. I mean, obviously, this will come out after the 4th of July, obviously, because we're just recording today. What should we have felt, or could we have felt?
Well, I feel like that is actually, as I'm speaking, that, the Sirius sun rising is about self-leadership, It is about you knowing your why and living your why.
Maybe that's why Rishi Sunak picked it. You never know.
We could go down that rabbit hole.
Who knows?
Let's get
on that note, I've got to go and vote. So I will speak to you all soon. Peace, love, and light, everybody. And yeah, let's see what happens. Bye for now.
We hope this conversation has topped up your life force energy. If it has, then please help us spread the life force. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. And may the life force be with all of us.